Welcome, dear listener, to the Sleeping Hourglass. Tonight, we follow the story of Joseph, not yet governor of Egypt, not yet clothed in linen and gold, but a boy with dreams brighter than the dawn. A dreamer who does not yet know that some paths win through shadows, and some promises ripen only in long silence. This is a journey about patience, about faith refined by waiting, about a thread of God's purpose woven through loss and hope alike. If this peaceful corner of night brings you comfort, you're welcome to like or subscribe, a small way to keep the lamp burning. The land of Canaan lies quiet in the morning light, soft hills rolling under the warmth of the sun, olive leaves shimmering in the hush of a desert breeze. It is the land where Abraham once walked, and where Isaac's laughter still seems to echo through the valleys. Now it belongs to Jacob, the patriarch of 12 sons, the keeper of promises passed from one generation to the next. Among them is Joseph, the son of Jacob's old age, the child of Rachel, beloved and long awaited. His youth still carries the simplicity of wonder, his eyes bright as spring water. He listens when his father speaks of God, and when he walks through the tents, the servants smile at him without knowing why. He has that rare air of grace that follows the favored. Jacob watches him with pride that he does not try to hide. The old man's hands, weathered by time and work, weave a gift, a robe made of many colors. The fabric gleams in the sun, dyed with threads of blue and crimson and gold, as though the dawn itself had been stitched into its folds. It is more than a garment. It is love made visible, a silent declaration that this son is set apart. But in the eyes of the other brothers, the coat glows like a wound. Reuben, the firstborn, feels his place slipping like sand through his fingers. Simeon and Levi, sons of Leah, see in that garment the shadow of their mother's sorrow, that she was never loved as Rachel was. Judah says nothing, but the silence in his heart is heavier than words. Envy is a quiet seed, but it grows quickly when watered by comparison. Still, Joseph wears the coat with joy, not arrogance. He is too young to understand what his father's gift stirs in others. He walks among his brothers in the fields, the coloured cloth fluttering like a banner of peace, not knowing it speaks to them of division. The flocks graze in the wide pastures, and for a while, the hum of daily life softens the ache of jealousy. Then come the dreams. They rise from sleep like whispers of destiny, vivid and strange. In one, Joseph stands in the field with his brothers, binding sheaves of grain. His sheaf stands upright, and the others bow down around it. The image is simple, yet in it, heaven seems to speak in symbols. When morning comes, Joseph tells it with the innocent excitement of youth. He does not imagine it will wound. Listen, he says, eyes bright. We were binding sheaves in the field, and my sheaf stood upright, and yours gathered around and bowed before it. A silence follows. The brothers stare, their pride stung. Shall you indeed reign over us? One says, his voice hard as flint. Shall you have dominion? Laughter breaks, sharp and cold, but beneath it smoulders something more dangerous. The thought that maybe this dreamer believes it. Still, Joseph cannot silence what heaven gives. Another night brings another vision. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowing before him. This time he tells even his father. Jacob listens, his brows furrowed. What is this dream you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers come to bow ourselves to you? Yet though he speaks as one who rebukes, his heart keeps the words. There is something in them he cannot dismiss, something that feels like the thread of a divine pattern. he has seen before. The brothers, however, are done with patience. The robe, the favor, the dreams. They all blur into one intolerable truth. The boy who should be last seems chosen to stand first. In the tents at dusk, their whispers begin. Around the fire, where shadows dance against the desert stone, they speak of Joseph not as a brother, but as a burden to be lifted. Hatred hardens in their hearts, and what began as envy turns quietly toward betrayal. Yet Joseph walks untroubled. His heart is open, untouched by malice, unaware that the storm is gathering around him. He helps his father count the flocks, brings back reports from the fields, and still dreams that will one day carry him far from this place. Sometimes, at night, he looks toward the horizon, where the stars spill over the edge of the sky. He remembers the dream of the bowing stars, and for a moment he feels both wonder and confusion. How could such things be? How could the heavens bend toward a shepherd boy? The questions drift like dust in moonlight, unanswered, but somehow not frightening. Jacob, meanwhile, watches his son with quiet awe. In Joseph, he sees not only youth but a future, a continuation of the promise spoken to Abraham. He feels the same stillness that once fell over Bethel when he saw angels ascending and descending a ladder of light. Perhaps, he thinks, God has chosen again to speak through dreams. In the fields, the brothers see none of this. They see only a boy whose coat shines brighter than theirs, whose dreams seem to mock their toil. Their eyes follow him with resentment sharpened by memory. The laughter of Joseph, clear, unguarded, grates against the silence that follows. And yet, destiny often begins in the smallest of moments, a dream retold, a robe worn too proudly, a glance that lasts too long. The soil of Canaan is ancient. It knows how easily love can turn to envy, how envy can turn to violence. The winds whisper through the valleys, carrying with them the sigh of stories yet to unfold, stories of betrayal, forgiveness, and redemption still buried in time. For now, all is still. The sheep move slowly across the hills, bells chiming softly in the heat of noon. Joseph walks ahead, his robe glimmering like a moving rainbow among the grey stones. Behind him, his brothers follow, their footsteps heavy with thought. No one speaks, but in the silence, something shifts, an invisible thread pulling them all toward what must come. When Joseph returns home at evening, Jacob welcomes him with a weary smile, pressing his hands upon his son's shoulders. The tent glows in the light of the oil lamp, and the colored garment catches the flame, sending shards of gold into the shadows. Jacob prays in his heart that peace will remain among his sons, that no bitterness will take root. But even as he prays, the roots are already spreading beneath the surface. Outside, the sky deepens into indigo. Stars emerge, perhaps the same stars Joseph saw bending low in his dream. Somewhere beyond the hills, the path of his life already curves toward Egypt, toward dungeons and thrones, though he cannot see it. Tonight, Canaan sleeps. The shepherds' fires die out one by one. In one tent, a father dreams of peace. In another, brothers dream of revenge. And somewhere in between love and envy, prophecy and misunderstanding, stands a boy draped in color, holding the weight of a destiny he does not yet understand. The night hums softly, as if heaven itself is watching. Dreams move through the darkness, weaving threads no human hand can trace. In the stillness of that night, the dreamer rests, unaware that dawn will lead him toward betrayal's edge. Morning breaks softly over the land of Hebron. the same land where Abraham once built his altars, where promises whispered by God still linger in the wind. The fields shimmer with dew, and the hills rise in quiet majesty. Within the tents of Jacob life stirs. The old patriarch, now grey with years and tenderness, calls for Joseph. "Go, my son," Jacob says gently, "see if it is well with your brothers and the flocks, and bring me word." The task is simple, but a father's trust often sends a soul into the hands of providence. Joseph rises at once. His coloured robe glows in the morning light. That same robe of many hues, the symbol of love that has become a target of envy. He carries no weapon, no guard, only the steady light of obedience in his heart. He walks through the valleys of Shechem, asking shepherds if they have seen his brothers. His voice is kind, his manner unassuming, still the boy who believes the world can be met with honesty. A man tells him they have gone to Dothan, and so Joseph turns toward Dothan, unaware that each step leads him closer to the mouth of the pit. The sun rises higher, the fields hum with cicadas. Far ahead his brothers see him coming. The glint of colour on the horizon, the familiar shape of the dreamer they once called brother, but today they do not call him that. "Here comes the dreamer," one says, his tone half laughter, half venom. "Come now," another replies, "let us kill him and see what becomes of his dreams." The words fall easily, sharpened by jealousy long fed in silence. The others nod. The plan feels almost justified. A cleansing of pride, a silencing of a vision that offends them. But Reuben, the eldest, falters. His heart still holds some memory of mercy. "Shed no blood," he says. "Cast him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him." He hopes to rescue the boy later, to return him quietly to their father. When Joseph arrives, his smile fades at the sight of their eyes. He speaks, but the warmth of family is gone from their faces. Rough hands seize him. His robe is torn from his body. That precious garment that had once shimmered like his father's love. They strip it away with satisfaction, as though removing not just fabric, but favour itself. He cries out, calling their names, but no voice answers him. They drag him to the pit, a dry cistern, hollow and dark, and they throw him in. The fall is brief, the shock great. Dust rises. Above him, the light of the sky becomes a narrow wound of brightness. He calls again. His voice echoes up the empty stone walls. "Reuben, Judah, please!" But only silence answers. The sound fades into the indifferent air, and the brothers sit down to eat bread nearby, the cruelty of hunger and habit stronger than conscience. As they eat, a caravan appears on the horizon, a slow-moving line of camels bearing balm and myrrh travelling down toward Egypt. Judah watches the caravan and feels the stirring of a different idea. "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood?" he says. "Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and our hand will not be upon him. For he is our brother, our own flesh." It is mercy twisted by logic, but the others agree. They lift Joseph from the pit, his face streaked with dust and tears. His heart leaps for a moment, believing he is being freed, but the hope dies quickly when he sees the caravan. Coins clink in rough hands, silver glimmers in the sun. 20 pieces. That is the price of a life. The brothers hand him over, and the traders bind his wrists with rope. The camels kneel. The caravan groans forward. Joseph looks back once, toward the hills of home, toward the faint outline of his father's tent somewhere beyond the horizon. No one waves. No one speaks. Only Reuben is absent, unaware that mercy has been sold for coin. Dust rises around him, the robe of many colors, once his pride, now torn and gone, lies far behind in his brother's hands. Soon they will dip it in the blood of a goat and bring it to Jacob, their voices feigning sorrow. We found this. Do you know whether it is your son's robe or not? And Jacob will weep until his strength leaves him, believing that a wild beast has devoured the son he loved most. But Joseph does not see that. He sees only the road, long, foreign, endless. The desert wind howls like morning. He is 17, and already the world feels immeasurably large, immeasurably cruel. The traders speak in tongues he does not understand. The ropes chafe at his skin. Every mile takes him farther from everything he has ever known. The laughter of his brothers before envy took root, the voice of his father blessing the flocks, the hills of Hebron washed in morning gold. He does not know it yet, but the same God who gave him dreams is watching still, not from a distance, but within the very silence that seems to swallow him. Every mile toward Egypt is a thread in a tapestry too vast for him to see. The caravan moves through twilight. The stars begin to appear, one by one, above the desert horizon. They shine faintly, the same stars that once bowed in his dream. Somewhere deep inside, Joseph's fear softens into something else, not understanding, but trust. He remembers his father's stories, of Abraham who left his land not knowing where he was going, of Isaac who waited for a promise unseen, of Jacob who wrestled in the dark until the blessing came. Perhaps, Joseph thinks, his journey is of the same kind, a road that leads through loss towards something greater. Behind him, the brothers bury their guilt in silence. Reuben returns to the pit and finds it empty. He rends his clothes in despair, crying, "The boy is gone, and where shall I go?" But the others say nothing. They take the blood-stained robe and return home, their hearts divided, their faces masks of grief. Jacob sees the coat and his world collapses. "It is my son's robe," he says, trembling. A wild beast has devoured him. He tears his garments, wraps himself in sackcloth, and mourns for many days. No word of comfort reaches him. He refuses to be consoled. "I will go down to my son, mourning, to the grave," and he weeps. The weeping of a father who has lost the light of his life. Meanwhile, far away, the caravan enters Egypt, a land of temples, stone, and shadowed power. The traders sell Joseph to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard. A new name, a new language, a new life begins. He stands now in a strange courtyard, the night wind heavy with the scent of lotus and Nile water. The stars above Egypt burn brighter than he has ever seen. He does not know that this place, this moment, is where his dream begins to unfold, not in glory, but in exile. And so, the dreamer enters Egypt, not as a prince, but as a slave. Yet even here, in the house of a stranger, the unseen hand that guided his dreams will not let him go. Egypt rises before him like a dream of stone and water, a land of sunlit palaces, towering idols, and endless fields fed by the veins of the Nile. The air smells of lotus and earth. The people move with quiet rhythm, each gesture bound to an order older than memory itself. It is a kingdom of precision, where everything has a place and every life a rank. Joseph enters it as a stranger, a slave purchased with silver. Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard, stands tall among the soldiers and officials of the royal court. He looks at the young Hebrew and sees potential, a quiet intelligence in his eyes, a steadiness rare among those bought from the markets. Joseph bows, his wrists still marked by the ropes of captivity. He speaks little, listens much. He learns the cadence of their speech, the meaning of their symbols. Slowly, the rhythms of Egypt become the setting for his obedience. Days pass into weeks, and Potiphar watches as the boy's hands turn everything they touch into order. The storerooms fill more neatly. The servants move with calm. Even the gardens bloom brighter, as though the god Joseph serves, walks unseen through the courtyard. Potiphar does not understand this god, but he senses something divine, and so Joseph rises, from servant to overseer, from slave to steward. Soon, nothing in Potiphar's house is done without his word. The Egyptian trusts him fully, placing the keys of his estate in Joseph's hand. In return, Joseph gives diligence and integrity. He works as though the eyes of heaven are always upon him. His heart, though wounded by betrayal, does not turn bitter. He believes that though he has been sold by men, he is still held by God. The house becomes his ministry, the place where unseen faith grows roots in visible work. In the whisper of papyrus leaves, in the hum of grinding grain, in the soft light spilling across marble floors, Joseph feels something like peace. But peace in the world is fragile. It trembles before temptation, especially when it comes dressed as admiration. Potiphar's wife watches Joseph often. She sees the grace in his movements, the quiet in his strength. Her eyes linger. In a house of power and plenty, she is bored, her heart restless amid luxury. What begins as curiosity becomes desire, and desire soon becomes pursuit. She waits for moments when the house grows still. When the servants are dismissed and Joseph moves alone through the corridors, her voice is smooth, her words soft, like silk sliding through fingers. "Lie with me," she says one day, her tone almost gentle. Joseph's heart jolts, but his answer is steady. "My master trusts me with everything in this house. He has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" His words are not loud, but they carry the weight of conviction. He turns and walks away. Yet temptation, when refused, rarely retreats, it waits. Days pass. She speaks again, and again he refuses. His no is not prideful, it is sorrowful, resolute. He knows what it costs to stand alone. He knows how easily purity is misunderstood. But he has learned already that obedience to God often leads through suffering, not around it. Then comes the day when the house is empty. No servants move through the courtyard. No footsteps echo in the hall. She catches him by his garment and repeats her call, this time sharp, desperate, commanding. Joseph does not argue. He does not linger. He tears himself free and runs, leaving the garment in her hands. It falls to the floor. Silent witness to his innocence. Humiliation twists quickly into rage. What cannot be possessed must be punished. Her cry pierces the quiet. "See, he came in to mock me." Servants rush in. Fear and confusion fill the air. The garment becomes evidence, truth inverted by passion. When Potiphar returns, she tells her tale again, eyes glistening with false injury. "The Hebrew servant you brought among us came in to insult me." She shows the robe, the token of supposed guilt. Potiphar's face hardens. The man who once trusted Joseph feels a storm rise in him. Betrayal, shame, confusion. Yet somewhere, beneath the surface, he doubts the story. Still, honor demands action. He cannot risk the scorn of the court. Joseph is taken, not to execution, though many a slave would meet such an end, but to the king's prison. The decision, merciful in its way, suggests Potiphar's lingering belief that The boy is not guilty. Yet mercy cannot remove the sting of chains. The prison gates close behind him. The echo of iron fades. Darkness wraps around him once more. How many times can one life be stripped bare? First the robe of favor torn by his brothers, now the robe of integrity left in another's hands. Each garment taken, each fall deeper than the last. Yet each time, Joseph keeps the one thing that cannot be stolen, his faith. In the stillness of the prison night, he sits upon the cold stone and lifts his eyes toward the unseen heavens. He speaks no complaint. The God who was with him in Potiphar's house is still with him here. In the place where forgotten men sleep beside their regrets. He does not yet know that this darkness is not an end but a passage, that the same God who allows descent also designs deliverance. Egypt may call him prisoner, but heaven still calls him chosen. Above, the Nile glimmers under the moonlight. The waters flow as they always have, slow, ancient, constant, carrying the secrets of kings and slaves alike. Somewhere in the city, Potiphar's wife lies awake, haunted by her own lie. Somewhere else, Pharaoh dreams uneasily, and in the quiet heart of the prison, a young Hebrew prays, his hope flickering like a lamp that refuses to go out. He will wait again, and serve again, and believe again, because faith, once tested, becomes unbreakable. In the still air of the prison, Joseph learns that righteousness does not always lead upward. Sometimes it descends first, deep into silence. Yet even here, beneath the weight of iron and injustice, the dreamer is not forgotten. The light in the prison is thin, a faint, filtered glow that falls through narrow slits of stone. Dust drifts in it like tired stars. Somewhere above, the city of Pharaoh breathes in sunlight, but here, beneath the earth, the hours move slower, heavier, as though time itself is reluctant to descend. Joseph wakes before the others. He listens to the quiet murmur of men who talk in their dreams, to the clank of distant chains, to the sigh of wind threading through cracks in the walls. The prison is not cruel in its noise, but in its silence, a silence that seeps into the soul until even memory begins to fade. Yet Joseph remembers. He remembers the fields of Canaan, the laughter of brothers who became betrayers, the robe torn and stained, the long caravan ride beneath the burning sky. He remembers the trust of Potiphar, the false accusation, the flight from temptation that led not to freedom but to confinement. And still, beneath the weight of all that has passed, something within him does not break. Faith, he has learned, is not proven in dreams fulfilled, but in dreams deferred. So he works. The keeper of the prison, noticing his steadiness, places all within his care, as Potiphar once did. The pattern repeats. Though the setting darkens, the keeper trusts him completely, for everything Joseph oversees prospers, even in this place where prosperity seems impossible. Bread is baked in time, water is shared without quarrel, disputes quiet beneath his calm voice. It is as though order itself follows him, not born of authority, but of presence. At night, when others sleep, Joseph walks the dim corridor. He feels the rough stone with his fingertips and thinks of the God who, though unseen, is nearer than the walls that surround him. Perhaps this, too, is preparation. The hollowing before the rising. One day, 2 new prisoners arrive, men of Pharaoh's court. Their robes are torn, but their posture still bears the shape of luxury. The first is the chief cupbearer, once trusted to taste the king's wine before it reached the royal lips. The second, the chief baker, who crafted bread for a god-king's table. Both have fallen out of favor, both accused, both uncertain of their fate. They are assigned to Joseph's care. He greets them with kindness, as he does all who come. He asks no questions of guilt or innocence. In this place, the past matters little. Every man here has been reduced to silence. Yet Joseph's quiet compassion is different. It makes the prison feel, for a moment, less like a tomb and more like a place where souls wait for dawn. Days pass. The cupbearer and the baker grow restless, their moods shifting between despair and hope. Then one morning, Joseph notices their faces clouded with unease. "Why do you look so troubled today?" he asks gently. They glance at one another before speaking. "We have dreamed," says the cupbearer, "and there is no one to interpret. In Egypt, dreams are sacred, messages from the divine, yet often veiled in mystery. To dream and find no interpreter is to feel cut off from heaven itself." Joseph listens, his eyes soft with understanding. "Interpretations belong to God," he says quietly. "Tell them to me, I pray you." The cupbearer speaks first. "In my dream," he says, "I saw a vine before me. On the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms opened, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into the cup, and I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Joseph's face brightens. This is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position. You shall once again place the cup in Pharaoh's hand, as you did when you were his cupbearer. But when it is well with you, remember me and show kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and bring me out of this house." The cupbearer nods, hope flickering in his wary eyes. Encouraged, the baker steps forward. "I also had a dream," he says. "There were 3 baskets of white bread on my head. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, and the birds were eating them from the basket." Joseph's gaze deepens. His voice softens, but he does not conceal the truth. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head, but from you, and the birds will eat your flesh. A hush falls between them. The baker looks away. Even truth, when spoken gently, can wound. 3 days pass, marked by the slow procession of torchlight and the measured sound of guards' sandals. On the morning of the 3rd day, the prison stirs with sudden movement. Orders from above, a royal summons. It is Pharaoh's birthday. The 2 men are brought forth. The cupbearer returns to his post, restored, his chains removed. The baker does not return. News filters back like whispers carried by dust. Joseph receives it in silence. The dream had spoken truly. One to life, the other to death. Yet his own deliverance, so near within reach, does not come. Days turn to weeks, weeks to months. The cupbearer, now surrounded again by the luxury of Pharaoh's court, forgets the Hebrew youth who spoke truth to his dream. Joseph waits. The prison returns to its rhythm. The same drip of water from the ceiling, the same size of men who have lost count of days. Yet something has changed in Joseph's waiting. The bitterness that might have taken root does not. His hope, though bruised, remains alive, like a lamp that burns on one last drop of oil yet refuses to go out. Sometimes, when the night is long and the others sleep, Joseph dreams again. But now his dreams are quieter, humbler. Not of stars bowing or sheaves rising, but of peace, of purpose, of the steady hand of God weaving through time unseen. He has learned that faith is not only trusting God when the door opens, but when it stays shut. Years may pass. The text does not say how many, but in those years, something deep within him is being formed. Patience becomes his language, endurance his song. The prison of forgotten men becomes, in its strange way, a temple, a place where humility and holiness meet. Above, Egypt continues its pageant of power. Pharaoh feasts. Priests chant their hymns to Ra. The river rises and falls in its eternal rhythm. None know that in the darkness below, a Hebrew prisoner carries within him the seed of their salvation. The world often forgets its saviors before it remembers them, and so Joseph waits, not as one who has given up, but as one who believes that even silence has meaning. The walls, though cold, no longer feel like enemies. The air, though heavy, seems to hum with quiet promise. One day, the dreams of kings will come down to find him here, and when they do, the years of darkness will reveal their purpose. But tonight, the prison remains still. The lamp burns low. Joseph closes his eyes and whispers a prayer that does not ask for freedom, only faith enough to keep waiting. In the hush that follows, it is almost as though heaven listens. In the quiet cell of forgotten men, Joseph's patience becomes the slow turning of time itself, unseen but inevitable. And far above, in the courts of Pharaoh, sleep begins to tremble, for soon a king will dream, and the dreamer will be remembered. Night falls softly over Egypt, the kind of stillness that hums with hidden meaning. The palace stands in golden silence, its halls wide and waiting. In that hush, Pharaoh dreams. He sees the river Nile, quiet and deep beneath a silver sky. From its sacred waters rise 7 cows, sleek and strong, their coats gleaming with health. They graze peacefully among the reeds, a picture of plenty. But then, from the same river, 7 other cows emerge, thin, hollow-eyed. Their bones sharp beneath their skin, they move like shadows, and as Pharaoh watches, the lean devour the fat. He wakes, breath quick, heart pounding. Yet when he falls back into restless sleep, the vision returns, different but the same. 7 full ears of grain, golden and heavy with promise, followed by 7 thin ears, shriveled and scorched by the east wind. Again, the poor consume the rich, the empty swallow the full. When morning comes, the king cannot rest. The images cling to him, haunting, incomplete. He summons his magicians, his wise men, his interpreters of signs and omens. They gather before him in trembling splendor, their voices offering riddles wrapped in fear. But none can tell the meaning. Their words fall like dust on marble floors. In the corner of that great hall, a man remembers. The cupbearer, standing once again by Pharaoh's side, feels a pang of memory. A promise once forgotten in the comfort of restored privilege. He steps forward and speaks. "I remember my faults this day," he begins, his voice low, humble. "When Pharaoh was angry with his servants and placed me and the chief baker in the prison, there was with us a young man, a Hebrew, servant to the captain of the guard. We dreamed a dream, each of us in one night, and he interpreted to us. And it came to pass, as he interpreted, I was restored and the baker was hanged." Pharaoh listens. Hope stirs beneath the weight of confusion. A man of dreams, a foreigner, a prisoner, yet one whose words proved true. He commands that Joseph be brought forth. Deep below the palace, in the chill of stone and iron, Joseph awakens to footsteps. The guards call his name. He is hurriedly taken from the dungeon, washed and shaven. Clean robes replace the rough cloth of captivity. The smell of the prison, earth and sorrow, fades beneath the scent of oil and linen. For the first time in years, Joseph sees the sun without bars. Its warmth touches his face like a memory of home. He walks through corridors of light and shadow, each step echoing between what was and what is to come. Then, before the throne of Egypt, Joseph stands. Pharaoh looks upon him, the dreamer, the foreigner, the man of chains. "I have dreamed a dream," Pharaoh says, "and there is none that can interpret it. I have heard it said of thee, that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it." Joseph bows his head. His voice is quiet, steady. "It is not in me," he says. "God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace." And so the king speaks his dream once more, of cows and corn, of fullness and famine. The room holds its breath as Joseph listens, the way one listens not only with the mind, but with the spirit. Then he answers, "The dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one, and the 7 thin and ill-favoured cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears scorched by the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine. All the plenty shall be forgotten in the land, and the famine shall consume it. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass." Silence fills the chamber. The words hang heavy, clear as morning light, certain as tide. Then Joseph continues, his tone gentle but sure. "Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let him appoint officers to gather the 5th part of the harvest during the 7 plenteous years, that the land perish not through famine." The hall remains hushed. Even the torches seem to listen, and Pharaoh, whose power none question, feels something stir deep within him, not pride, but recognition. Truth has spoken before him, not as a riddle, but as revelation. He turns to his servants. "Can we find such a one as this?" he asks. "A man in whom the Spirit of God is." Then, with a gesture that shifts the course of kingdoms, Pharaoh looks back to Joseph. "Forasmuch as God hath shewed thee all this," he says, "there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou." A signet ring slips from Pharaoh's finger, gold glinting like the sun itself, and is placed upon Joseph's hand. Fine linen replaces the garments of servitude. A chain of gold rests upon his neck, the echo of iron turned to honour. A chariot waits outside, and heralds cry through the streets, "Bow the knee." In a single day, the prisoner becomes a prince. The dreamer steps into the very vision that once caused his exile. But Joseph's eyes are not lifted to glory. They are lifted to heaven. He names his new life not after power, but after remembrance. And as the years of plenty begin, the land blossoms under his care. Granaries rise beside the river, filled until the grain spills like sand. Fields wave with abundance. Egypt sings, yet within the song, Joseph feels the quiet ache of distance. A face of an old man in Canaan, the sound of brothers' laughter long lost. The dream has come full circle, yet its meaning still unfolds. For dreams once given do not end in their fulfillment. They ripple onward into the unseen will of God. And as Egypt sleeps in comfort beneath the rhythm of harvest, the world beyond begins to hunger. Across deserts and distant hills, footsteps stir toward the land of grain. and toward the dreamer who waits. The sound of the palace still hums in Joseph's ears, the echo of Pharaoh's words, the weight of the signet ring now resting against his skin. The air itself feels new. The scent of linen and myrrh replaces the dust of prison stones. And yet, beneath the fine robe and golden chain, his heartbeat remains the same, steady, humble, uncertain of the distance between yesterday's darkness and today's light. He rides through the streets of Egypt, the chariot wheels whispering against the earth. Crowds bow as he passes, their cries rising like waves. Bow the knee, faces blur. Farmers, merchants, servants, soldiers, each witnessing a miracle they do not understand. Few know the story behind the man, the boy once despised by his brothers, the dreamer once sold for silver, the slave who carried favor even in chains. Joseph sits upright, not in pride, but in awe. The wind carries with it the faint murmur of his youth. The field in Canaan, the dream of sheaves bowing down. He had not sought this, yet the vision leaves before his eyes. Dreams, he now knows, are not ladders for ambition, but windows into purpose. Pharaoh names him Zaphanath-Paneah, the revealer of secrets. He gives him Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, as wife. And in the house of his new life, Joseph learns the language of peace after years of endurance. Yet even as Egypt honors him, a quiet ache remains, a homesickness that no gold can soothe. The 7 years of plenty begin as the Nile overflows with generosity. Grain springs up like laughter from the soil. The harvest is abundant beyond measure. The earth yields as though remembering the hand of creation itself. Joseph oversees it all, calm, precise, unwavering. Under his command, storehouses rise beside cities and rivers, tall as temples, wide as memory. He organizes the gathering of grain until it can no longer be counted as the sand of the sea. The people work and sing, grateful under his wise eye. And yet, as the granaries fill, Joseph's mind drifts to another land. A small tent under Canaan's stars, where a father once called his name. He dreams no more of glory, but of reunion. In his heart, the image of Jacob's weathered face endures, the father who loved him most, and who believes him lost. Time moves like the slow current of the Nile, faithful and unhurried. Years pass in peace. The harvests come and go. The fields whisper in golden waves, and Joseph grows older, quieter. When his first son is born, he names him Manasseh. For God hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. It is not forgetfulness of love, but of pain, the kind of forgetting that heals rather than erases. When his second son is born, he calls him Ephraim. For God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. In those names, his soul finds balance, sorrow remembered, blessing acknowledged. And then, as the 7th year of plenty fades into memory, the world begins to change. The rains lessen, the river retreats, the green of the fields turns brittle and pale. The wind shifts, no longer soft but dry, carrying the scent of hunger. The famine begins quietly, as all great sufferings do. It starts with whispers, a poor harvest here, a thin field there. Soon, the cry of want spreads beyond Egypt's borders, echoing across nations. But within Egypt, there is bread. The granaries stand full, their doors opened at Joseph's word. Grain flows like mercy through his hands. Men come from every land to buy food, bowing before the governor who saved them, never knowing they kneel before a man once forgotten by the world. The years of famine tighten their grip. The land cracks under the sun's unrelenting gaze. The soil itself seems to sigh. Joseph watches the people come and go, and though his position is high, his spirit remains tender. He remembers the hunger of the prison, the thirst of betrayal. He knows what it means to wait on God when no door opens. Each face he sees reminds him of those who once turned away from him, his brothers. Sometimes he wonders if they too walk under this same famine sky, if their fields in Canaan have withered, if Reuben still tries to lead, if Judah still carries guilt in his eyes. One evening, as Joseph stands on the balcony of his house, the Nile glinting bronze beneath the setting sun, he closes his eyes and whispers to the wind, "Father," his voice breaks softly against the horizon. For all that he has gained, one thing remains beyond reach. The voice that once called him my son. Asenath approaches, her presence gentle as the twilight. "You have given bread to the nations," she says, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "But there is one hunger even you cannot fill." Joseph nods. "Yes," he murmurs, "and it is the hunger of memory." The nights grow longer as the famine deepens. Travelers from foreign lands begin to arrive. Their animals thin, their faces worn. They speak of distant places, of withered crops, of children crying for bread. Joseph listens with compassion, directing his stewards to serve them all. Egypt becomes a refuge, its abundance a light amid the world's emptiness. And still, he waits. For beneath the rhythm of administration, beneath the counting of grain and the measuring of silver, something else moves. Quiet, unseen. A divine thread still weaving between past and present, between the boy in the pit and the man who now saves nations. The famine stretches beyond Egypt's reach, into Canaan itself, where an old man and his sons look toward the horizon with desperate hope. Though Joseph does not yet know it, the path of his family bends once more toward him. What was scattered will soon be gathered. Yet, on this side of revelation, Joseph only senses the coming tide, the way a bird feels the change of wind before the storm. He rises early each morning, walks through the storage yards, and watches as the people come. Their shadows long against the sand. He listens to their stories, their gratitude, their prayers. Some call him a savior, others see only an official. But in his heart, he remains what he always was, a servant of a dream too vast for his own understanding. And in quiet moments, when the palace grows still and the torches dim, he speaks to God in the same way he once did as a boy among Canaan's fields. "I am still here," he says softly, "still waiting for what you will bring next." Outside, the stars shimmer above the sleeping nation. They look down upon a man once cast into darkness, now set high among kings, a man who has learned that favor and suffering are often born of the same hand. He closes his eyes and rests in that truth. For though he wears Egypt's crown, his soul still carries the memory of chains, and in that remembrance lies the strength of his mercy. But even as Egypt thrives under Joseph's care, famine spreads its quiet shadow across the world. Far away in Canaan, 10 brothers prepare for a journey south, unaware that the one who holds their future once dreamed of their coming. The years of plenty have passed. The once green fields of Canaan lie pale beneath the sun, their soil cracked and thirsty. The wells, once generous, echo empty. Trees stand bare as if in mourning. Hunger walks softly through the land, a quiet shadow touching every home. In Jacob's tent, the air is heavy. His sons sit in uneasy silence, their faces drawn with worry. The stores of grain have grown thin. The flocks wander restless, their bleating hollow in the wind. Each day stretches long with want, and Jacob, weary and watchful, finally speaks. "I have heard that there is corn in Egypt," he says, his voice roughened by age and memory. "Go down there and buy for us from thence, that we may leave and not die." 10 brothers rise: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Benjamin, the youngest, stays behind, for Jacob cannot bear the thought of losing another son of Rachel. His eyes still hold the H of Joseph's torn coat, the blood he once believed to be his child's. So the 10 set out, their camels laden with sacks and their hearts burdened with silence. They travel southward, through barren hills and shifting sands, toward the empire that rules the world, toward Egypt. The road is long, filled with dust and thought. Each man walks beside his own regret. Reuben remembers his failed defense, Judah his cruel suggestion, the others their shared deceit. Years have buried their guilt, but famine has a way of unearthing what time pretends to heal. At last they reach the borders of Egypt, a land still green, still living under the hand of the man who saved it. The gates of the granaries stand wide. Merchants and travelers crowd the streets, tongues from many nations blending in the air like a song of survival. The brothers join the line of those who come to buy grain, unaware that the one who governs it all watches from above. Joseph, the dreamer they once sold, he stands in the great hall of distribution, robed in linen, his signet gleaming in the torchlight. Years have changed him, his face older, his eyes wiser, his voice carrying the calm authority of one who has learned patience through pain. He speaks through interpreters now, fluent in the language of power. Yet when the 10 men approach, something within him stills. Their faces, older, weathered, lined by time, are faces he knows. The air between them seems to stop breathing. They bow before him, their foreheads to the ground, and in that moment the dream of his youth returns. The sheaves bowing, the prophecy once mocked, now alive before his eyes. The memory glows with divine precision, and yet it burns with sorrow. Joseph does not reveal himself. His heart trembles, but his wisdom holds him still. He remembers not only their cruelty, but also God's purpose, the thread that wove his suffering into salvation. He speaks harshly, masking his tenderness. "Whence come ye?" he asks through the interpreter. "From the land of Canaan," they answer, "to buy food." Joseph studies them. His gaze moves from one to another, searching, remembering. He recognizes their voices, their gestures, the way Reuben glances aside when uneasy, the way Judah carries guilt like a shadow. He accuses them, "Ye are spies. To see the nakedness of the land ye are come." They protest, their words tumbling with fear. "Nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's sons, we are true men, thy servants are no spies." Joseph presses the charge again, testing not only their words but their hearts. Then they speak what pierces him most. "We are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in Canaan. And, behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. One is not." The phrase strikes him like a whisper from the grave. He turns away, lest they see the tears that threaten to rise. Years of endurance steady him again, and he declares, "Hereby ye shall be proved. Ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither." He imprisons them 3 days. In that silence Joseph wrestles, not with anger, but with memory. Each face reminds him of betrayal, yet also of the divine pattern that led him here. On the 3rd day, His mercy speaks louder than his pain. He calls them forth. This do, and live, he says, for I fear God. If ye be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go, carry corn for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me. So shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. They agree. But the weight of guilt presses them down. Among themselves they whisper, not knowing Joseph understands every word. We are verily guilty concerning our brother, they say, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. Reuben's voice rises, regret mixed with reproach. Spake I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear. Therefore, behold, his blood is required. Joseph turns aside and weeps. The walls cannot contain the sound, though he tries. When he returns, his face is composed, his command firm. He binds Simeon before their eyes, the brother who once stood silent when he was sold. Then he orders their sacks filled with grain, and secretly he commands that every man's money be restored, hidden again within their bags. As the brothers depart, the weight of mercy follows them, though they do not yet recognize it. The road home is long and quiet. When they stop to feed their animals, one opens his sack and sees the silver gleam within. His heart stumbles in fear. My money is restored, he gasps. Lo, it is even in my sack. Their faces pale. What is this that God hath done unto us? They whisper. In Canaan, Jacob receives them. They tell all that has happened. The harsh ruler, the imprisoned Simeon, the demand for Benjamin. Jacob's heart breaks again. Me have ye bereaved of my children, he cries. Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and ye will take Benjamin away. All these things are against me. Reuben offers his own sons as surety, but Jacob refuses. His old eyes, dim with years of grief, cannot yet see the mercy hiding in the trial. My son shall not go down with you, he says softly, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If mischief befall him by the way, then shall ye bring down my grey hairs with sorrow to the grave. The brothers fall silent, yet hunger knows no mercy. The months pass, the famine tightens its hand. When the grain runs out, necessity forces Jacob's heart to bend. Judah steps forward, gentler now than the youth who once joined in betrayal. Send the boy with me, he says softly. I will be surety for him. If I do not bring him back, I will bear the blame forever. Reluctantly, the old father yields. He sends them again, with Benjamin and gifts, balm, honey, and double silver. May God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, Jacob prays, and may he send back your other brother and Benjamin. The journey south is heavy with memory and fear. When Joseph sees them approaching and Benjamin among them, his composure falters. He calls for a feast to be prepared. The brothers are astonished, fearful of being accused for the silver's return. But when they present their defense, Joseph's steward replies calmly, "Peace be with you. Your God and the God of your father has given you treasure in your sacks." Then Simeon is restored to them, and they are led into Joseph's house. When Joseph enters, they bow low again, and the sight of Benjamin, his mother's son, softens him beyond words. "Is this your youngest brother?" he asks, voice trembling. "God be gracious to you, my son." And then, suddenly, he can bear it no longer. He leaves the room weeping. The weight of the years breaks open inside him. For in Benjamin's face, he sees not only his brother, but all that was lost. His mother's smile, his father's embrace, his own vanished youth. He washes his face, composes himself, and returns. The meal is served. The brothers astonished to find themselves seated in order of birth, from eldest to youngest. Benjamin's portion is 5 times larger, a silent measure of love. Yet none understand. They eat, drink, and are merry with the man they once betrayed. And as the brothers stand before him, broken and trembling, Joseph feels both sorrow and grace stir like twin rivers in his soul. The past and the present meet, and soon the truth will have to be spoken. And so the cup gleams like a mirror, reflecting not guilt, but the chance for redemption. Before the next sunrise, Joseph will see whether his brothers have learned to love more than they once envied. Morning rises gently over Egypt. The city wakes beneath a pale sun, gilding the riverbanks and the palm-lined courtyards where Joseph's servants move quietly. In the storehouses, the smell of grain hangs thick. The harvest that once promised plenty now sustains nations. And yet, Joseph's thoughts are not on Egypt's wealth this day. His heart is heavy with remembrance. The faces of his brothers, the echoes of a boyhood cut short by betrayal. They have come again, these men from Canaan. Weary, humbled, uncertain, they stand before him not as strangers now, but as figures from a past that refuses to fade. Benjamin, his youngest brother, stands among them, the image of their mother, Rachel, still alive in his eyes. Joseph watches him quietly, love welling like a tide against the walls of his restraint. But before reunion comes redemption, and before mercy, there must be truth. So Joseph prepares one final test. He speaks softly to his steward, a plan whispered like a sigh. Fill their sacks with food, he says, as much as they can carry, and put every man's silver again in his mouth of the sack. But my cup, the silver one, place it in the youngest's sack. The steward nods, loyal and unquestioning. The orders are carried out before dawn. Soon the brothers set out from the city, their donkeys laden with grain, their hearts lighter than they have been in years. They believe the worst is behind them. They do not know that the path ahead holds a reckoning, not for Joseph's sake, but for their own. When the morning light is still young on the horizon, Joseph sends his steward after them. Follow the men, he commands, and when you overtake them, say to them, why have you repaid good with evil? Is this not the cup from which my master drinks and by which he divines? The brothers are overtaken quickly. Dust rises around them as the steward's voice cuts through the still air. Shock ripples through their company. They protest. Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. Behold, the silver we found last time we brought back. Why then would we steal from your Lord's house? Their confidence trembles into pride. With whomever your master's cup is found, they declare, let him die, and we also will be your servants. The steward agrees, but with mercy. He with whom it is found shall be my slave, he says, and the rest of you shall go free. One by one, the sacks are lowered. The cords are loosened. Grain spills like gold onto the ground. Reuben's sack, empty. Simeon's, empty. Levi's, Judah's, all the same. Then Benjamin's bag is opened, and there, gleaming in the morning sun, lies the silver cup. A terrible stillness falls. The brothers stare, disbelief turning to despair. Clothes are torn. The sound of grief fills the air. They do not plead innocence now. Instead, they turn back toward the city, hearts breaking with every step. In Joseph's house, they fall before him again, the dream of years past now complete. He watches them kneel, But no triumph stirs within him, only sorrow and love mingled like rain and dust. "What deed is this that you have done?" he asks, voice steady, eyes unreadable. "Do you not know that such a man as I can indeed divine?" Judah steps forward. The weight of years has changed him. Gone is the reckless cruelty of youth, the bitterness that once conspired against a brother. He bows low, voice trembling with remorse. "What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we clear ourselves? God has found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also with whom the cup is found." But Joseph tests him further. "Far be it from me to do so," he answers. "The man in whose hand the cup was found, he shall be my servant. But as for you, go up in peace to your father." The words hang like a knife in the air. To go would mean freedom, but also another betrayal, another father's heart broken. Judah's silence lasts only a moment before he draws near again. His plea arises not as a speech, but as a confession, a soul laid bare. "O my Lord," he begins, "let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears. Thou art even as Pharaoh, my Lord asked his servants, saying, Have ye a father or a brother? And we said, We have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, the youngest. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loveth him. And thou saidst to thy servants, Bring him down unto me. But our father said, If he should leave me, his brother is dead, and he alone remains. If mischief befall him, ye shall bring down my grey hairs with sorrow to the grave. Now, therefore, when I come to thy servant my father, and the lad be not with us, seeing that his life is bound up in the lad's life, it shall come to pass that he shall die in sorrow. So now, I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad, a bondman to my Lord, and let the lad go up with his brethren. For how shall I go up to my father, and the lad be not with me?" His voice breaks. The room is filled with the sound of repentance that has waited for years to speak. This is not the same Judah who once sold a brother for silver. This is a man remade by guilt and grace. Joseph can bear it no longer. The walls that held his composure shatter. He cries, "Cause every man to go out from me." The servants withdraw. The chamber fills with his weeping, loud, unrestrained, echoing through the halls of Pharaoh's house. The brothers tremble before him, not understanding. Through tears, Joseph speaks the words that break the last barrier of their hearts. "I am Joseph. Is my father yet alive?" Shock stills them. Their face is pale, their silence is heavy with disbelief. But Joseph draws near and says again, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life." Forgiveness floods the room. The past dissolves in mercy's light. Joseph's arms open wide, and he embraces Benjamin, his heart's reflection, and then his brothers, one by one. Tears and laughter mingle like the first rain after famine. The years of silence, the long nights of sorrow, the chains and the prayers, all lead to this moment of revelation. The dream that once seemed cruel now unfolds in perfect peace. And though the chapter of pain closes here, another begins. For a father must still be told, and an old grief awakened into joy. The sound of weeping fades into the hush of reunion. Yet beyond Egypt's gates, an aged shepherd waits, unaware that his lost son leaves. Tomorrow, hope will travel north, carried by the news that will awaken Jacob's heart. The air in Joseph's chamber is still. The sound of his weeping lingers in the corners like incense after prayer. His brothers stand frozen, their faces pale, their hearts caught between disbelief and dread. The words still hang in the air, words too great to grasp. I am Joseph. For a long moment the world seems to stop. The torches flicker against the stone walls, their light trembling as if in awe. Outside, Egypt hums with distant life. Chariots rolling, servants calling. But within this room, time itself holds its breath. I am Joseph, he says again, softer now, his voice breaking beneath the weight of memory. Is my father still alive? No one answers. The brothers are speechless, their minds racing through years of guilt and sorrow. They see, in the face of the Egyptian ruler before them, the boy they once mocked, the dreamer they sold. His eyes, though touched by age and power, are unmistakable. They are the same eyes that once pleaded from a pit, the same eyes that had watched them turn away. Fear grips them. What punishment could equal what they had done? They cannot meet his gaze. Their silence is an open confession. But Joseph steps closer, and with every step, the years between them begin to dissolve. Come near to me, he says gently. I pray you, come near. They approach, trembling, men who once dealt cruelty, now undone by mercy. And Joseph, seeing their terror, does not harden his heart. His voice is steady, tender, filled with something deeper than justice. I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But do not be grieved, nor angry with yourselves that you sold me hither. For God sent me before you to preserve life. His words fall like rain upon parched ground. The brothers lift their eyes, uncertain, unable to comprehend such grace. But Joseph continues, patient, calm, as though every pain of his past has found its meaning in this single moment. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, he says, and yet there are 5 years in which there shall be neither ploughing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a remnant in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. His gaze softens. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. The brothers weep not from punishment, but from the overwhelming weight of love undeserved. And Joseph weeps with them. The sound of it fills the room, the kind of weeping that cleanses, that loosens sorrow's grip on the soul. He draws Benjamin first into his arms. The 2 brothers cling to one another, the younger's tears wetting the elder's robe. Years of absence collapse into one embrace. Then Joseph turns to the others, Reuben, Simeon, Judah, each one in turn, and he kisses them. Words fail, but forgiveness speaks in the silence between breaths. The servants outside the door hear the sobs and whispers and know not what they mean. But heaven understands, for this is not merely a family's reconciliation, but the restoration of a promise spoken long before their birth. When the first light of calm enters their hearts, Joseph calls them to sit. He speaks no longer as ruler, but as brother. Haste ye, he says, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not, and thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, near me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children. The brothers listen, their tears drying into smiles. They see now what their sin had never foreseen, that the pit, the chains, the prison, all were paths leading toward preservation, not destruction. That even in their cruelty, God's mercy had been weaving quietly. Joseph continues, his voice soft but sure. And there will I nourish you, he says. or there are yet 5 years of famine, lest you and your household come to poverty. And, behold, your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that it is my mouth that speaketh unto you. He pauses then, looking toward the distant hills beyond the palace windows. In his mind, he sees the tents of Canaan, the old man who once wrapped him in a coat of many colors. His father, still alive, still waiting, still believing his son was gone. Tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, Joseph says, though his tone carries no pride, and of all that ye have seen, and make haste and bring down my father hither. The brothers nod, eager now not just to obey, but to redeem. They have seen what forgiveness looks like, not the soft forgetting of wrongs, but the fierce mercy that transforms them into blessings. Soon, Pharaoh himself hears of the reunion. The sound of Joseph's joy spreads through the palace like music. Pharaoh is pleased, for he has come to love Joseph as his own. He sends word, saying, Say unto your brethren, This do ye, lade your beasts, and go, get you unto the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households, and come unto me. I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and ye shall eat the fat of the land. He commands wagons to be prepared, gifts for the journey, and food for the road. To Benjamin, Joseph gives silver and 5 changes of raiment. To each of his brothers, garments also. But to his father, he sends 10 asses laden with the best of Egypt, grain, bread, and provisions, enough to carry hope home again. Before they depart, Joseph gathers them one last time. The room is quiet once more, filled with the golden light of afternoon. See that ye fall not out by the way, he says softly. It is both warning and blessing, a reminder to carry peace with them. They bow, grateful, humbled, changed. As they leave the city, the wind carries with it the echoes of Joseph's voice. The faint murmur of weeping turned to laughter. The streets of Egypt watched 12 men go. Men who once broke a promise, now carrying its fulfillment home. And Joseph stands at his window long after they are gone. His eyes trace the road that winds north, his heart following faster than any caravan could travel. He thinks of his father's face, aged and gentle, of the fields of Hebron and the scent of home. The sun dips low, shadows lengthen over the Nile. Joseph's journey, which began in a pit and passed through chains and dungeons, now bends toward its quietest reward. Not power, not wealth, but reunion. He breathes deeply, his heart resting at last in the wisdom of providence. The dreams of his youth, of sheaves bowing, of stars inclining, no longer seem like triumphs of pride, but symbols of grace. What God had shown him as a boy, he has fulfilled through patience, pain, and peace. The chamber grows still again. Joseph closes his eyes, and for the first time in many years, his spirit is light. He has seen the pattern of God's hand in the tapestry of time. What was torn is mended. What was lost is found. Outside, the wagons roll through Egypt's gates, bearing not just food, but forgiveness. And far away, in the quiet hills of Canaan, an old man stirs, soon to hear that his son yet leaves. Across the deserts and valleys, the message travels like dawn spreading over the earth. Joseph is alive. The sun rises gently over the hills of Canaan. Morning light spills across the tents of Jacob's household, quiet and golden, touching every stone and fold of fabric as though the earth itself is whispering good news. In the distance, a caravan moves toward the camp, wagons heavy with provisions, beasts of burden laden with the treasures of Egypt. But no treasure gleams brighter than the message they carry. Joseph is alive. Inside his tent, the old patriarch sits in stillness. His face, marked by the furrows of years and sorrow, bears the weight of memories too long carried. He is weary, not just from age, but from grief that never healed, since the day his sons brought him the torn coat stained with blood. Jacob's heart has lived in shadow, even when the famine came and his household looked to him for guidance. A part of him remained buried in the silence of loss. The sound of footsteps breaks the morning's calm. The brothers enter, their faces trembling with awe and joy. They bow before their father and speak, their words tumbling like wind through dry reeds. Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. Jacob's breath catches. For a heartbeat, he does not believe them. The world sways between dream and disbelief. It is enough, he whispers faintly, shaking his head. Joseph, my son, is dead. But then they show him the wagons Pharaoh has sent, carved with symbols of Egypt, filled with grain, gold, and garments fit for royalty. They tell him of Joseph's rule, of his mercy, of his desire that his father come down to Egypt and dwell near him. Each word feels like a thread of light weaving through years of darkness. And then, something stirs within Jacob, a flame long thought extinguished. Scripture says, "And the spirit of Jacob their father revived." Hope, that ancient companion of faith, rises once more in his chest. The old man's eyes, once dimmed by sorrow, glisten anew. "It is enough," he says again, but now with trembling joy. "Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die." Preparations begin. The tents are folded, the herds gathered, the children lifted into wagons. What began as a family of wanderers now becomes a procession of promise. The road stretches southward, winding through dust and memory. Each mile carries Jacob closer, not only to Egypt, but to a fulfillment older than himself. The covenant God once spoke to Abraham and Isaac, now unfolding through the hands of his sons. As the caravan nears Beersheba, Jacob pauses. His heart remembers. This is the place where his father once built an altar, where the promise of the Lord had been spoken. And now, before stepping into a foreign land, he does what he has always done. He seeks God. Night settles over the camp like a mantle. The stars burn quietly above the desert. Jacob kneels beside a stone, weathered and sacred, and offers sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. His prayer is not a demand, but a surrender, the kind of prayer that knows how to wait. In the silence, God speaks to him in a vision of the night. "Jacob, Jacob." "Here am I," the old man replies, his voice trembling like the wind in dry grass. And the voice of God says, "I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes." The words settle into Jacob's soul like rain into soil. Every doubt fades, every fear softens. He rises at dawn, strengthened by the promise that God is not bound by borders or nations, that even in exile, divine presence abides. The journey continues. The days pass slow and steady, marked by the rhythmic creak of wagons and the bleating of sheep. The children laugh beside the road. The women sing songs of comfort and memory. But Jacob rides in silence, his heart fixed ahead. Each step of the camels seems to echo the same thought. Joseph leaves. Joseph leaves. At last, they reach Goshen, the land Joseph has prepared for them. Fertile, quiet, and near enough that father and son may see one another often. Word reaches Joseph swiftly, "Your father is near." He wastes no time. The chariot is prepared. The horses glisten in the sun. He rides out to meet him. No longer the boy once cast away, but a prince clothed in linen and gold, yet carrying a heart that still belongs to Canaan. The distance between them closes. Dust swirls around the wheels. The desert wind hums like a hymn. And then, at last, Jacob sees him, not in dream or memory, but living, breathing, radiant. Joseph steps down from the chariot and runs to his father. The old man's hands, trembling, reach out. They fall into each other's arms, and Joseph weeps long upon his father's neck. Time dissolves, the years of separation, the nights of weeping, the questions that had no answers, all melt away in the warmth of reunion. Jacob holds him tightly, as though to assure himself that flesh and spirit have indeed returned. He whispers through tears, "Now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. But this is not the end. It is only peace finding its voice after a long silence." Joseph, ever tender, leads his father to see Pharaoh, to behold the land that will shelter his family through the famine. When they come before Pharaoh, the old shepherd stands humbly, leaning upon his staff. The might of Egypt surrounds him, marble columns, golden thrones, the gleam of a civilization vast and ancient. And yet it is Pharaoh who bows inwardly, moved by the presence of a man whose life has been shaped by faith. "How old art thou?" Pharaoh asks. Jacob answers with quiet dignity, "The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and have not attained unto the days of my fathers in their pilgrimage." Then Jacob blesses Pharaoh. In that act, the shepherd blesses the king, the covenant blesses the empire, and the story of Israel takes its next breath. Joseph settles his family in the best of the land, in the region of Ramses. There, Jacob and his sons dwell, their flocks multiplying, their tents filled with laughter once more. The famine rages still across the earth, but in Goshen there is rest. The old man often sits beneath the palm trees, watching the sun sink beyond the horizon, the air warm and sweet. Around him, children play, the sons of his sons, the beginnings of a nation. He speaks softly of Abraham, of Isaac, of the God who never forgot. And sometimes, when the wind stirs the reeds, he thinks of that long road from Canaan, of the dreamer who was lost and found again. He knows now that every sorrow had its season, and every silence its meaning. As night falls over Goshen, the stars shimmer like the same covenant that once shone above Canaan. Yet even peace must pass, and soon Jacob's final blessing will flow like a river over his sons, shaping the future of tribes yet unborn. The air in Goshen lies soft and golden. Evening folds itself around the tents of Israel like a shawl drawn close over weary shoulders. Inside the dwelling of Jacob, the oil lamps burn low, their light quivering on the wrinkled fabric of time itself. The old patriarch lies upon his bed, the years resting heavily upon him, yet his eyes, those dimmed windows of a long life, still hold the quiet gleam of purpose. Outside, the voices of children ripple through the dusk, laughter threading through the hum of distant herds. Life has taken root in this foreign land. Egypt's granaries are full, and Joseph, once a boy in chains, now stands as a prince beside Pharaoh. Yet even amid comfort and abundance, Jacob's heart beats for another soil, the dust of Canaan, the hills of his fathers. For the promise does not sleep in Egypt, it waits beyond it, He calls for his sons. Word travels swiftly, and one by one they gather, 12 men grown, each carrying the marks of years and choices, the furrows of guilt, pride, endurance, and love. They approach quietly, as if the walls themselves listen for his final words. Joseph comes last. His robe gleams faintly in the lamplight, but when his father's gaze finds him, it is not the robe that matters. It is the face. The same face Jacob once thought lost forever, now grown into wisdom and sorrow. The room holds its breath. "Come near to me, my sons," Jacob says, his voice thin yet steady, like the last flame of a candle that refuses to yield. "Gather, that I may tell you what shall befall you in days to come." And so they gather close, 12 sons around one bed, the seed of a nation circling its root. To Reuben, the firstborn, Jacob speaks with the tremor of both love and disappointment. "You are my might, the beginning of my strength," he whispers. "But unstable as water, you shall not excel. There is grief in the words, not anger, but the quiet sorrow of a father who has seen potential wasted, honor slipped through careless hands." Reuben lowers his head, the weight of memory heavy upon him. To Simeon and Levi, Jacob's tone grows firm. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitation. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce. His words fall like stones into a still pond, rippling with the reminder that violence may carve victory, but never peace. Yet even this rebuke is wrapped in the mercy of remembrance, a father's hope that time will smooth what fire once hardened. Then Judah steps forward. Judah, whose voice once sold a brother but now offered himself for another. Over him, Jacob's words soften, rich as wine pressed from old grapes. "Judah, you are he whom your brothers shall praise. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until Shiloh come." A long silence fills the tent. The other brothers listen, understanding little of the prophecy, yet feeling the tremor of destiny beneath their feet. From Judah's line will come kings, and beyond kings, something eternal. Jacob's eyes glisten. Even in his fading sight, he sees shadows of a future crowned with promise, a kingdom that will not fall to time. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea. His future will be tied to commerce, to openness, to horizons beyond Canaan's soil. Issachar is a strong ass crouching between two burdens. His life will be one of labor and endurance, a tribe of quiet strength willing to bear the weight of peace, even when it demands servitude. Dan shall judge his people. Dan shall be a serpent by the way. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Asher, his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. And then Joseph kneels. The tent grows still. Even the oil lamps seem to lean closer. Jacob's hand, thin and veined, rests upon Joseph's head. The same head he once kissed goodbye when sending him to the fields of Shechem. So much life has passed between those two touches: betrayal, slavery, dungeons, dreams, thrones. Joseph Jacob murmurs, voice quavering yet bright, "You are a fruitful vow, even a fruitful vow by a well, whose branches run over the wall." The words linger like incense. A fruitful vow, rooted in hardship, watered by tears, yet unbroken. "The archers have sorely grieved you," Jacob continues, "but your bow remained in strength, and the arms of your hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob." A Joseph bows his head. He feels his father's blessing pour over him like a river, not of power, but of peace. Behind Jacob's words lies a deeper truth. that fruitfulness is not the reward of ease, but the miracle of endurance. That the branches which reach farthest are those that have clung most stubbornly to their root. Jacob's voice fades into prayer. The blessings of your father have prevailed above the blessings of my ancestors. Unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills, he breathes deeply, as though inhaling the air of Canaan across the miles. For Benjamin, the youngest, Jacob's tone shifts again, tender and wistful. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf, he says. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. A strange blessing, fierce yet hopeful, as if to say that strength too can be holy when guided by love. When the last word is spoken, the tent falls into silence. The brothers stand motionless, their eyes glistening with the realization that something eternal has passed through them. A current older than their own hearts. Jacob leans back, his breath slowing, the lines on his face deepen like ancient roads. I am to be gathered to my people, he says softly. Bury me with my fathers in the cave of Machpelah. Joseph nods, his throat tight. He remembers that cave, where Abraham and Sarah lie, where Isaac and Rebekah rest, where Leah sleeps. It is the cradle of the promise, the resting place of faith. Outside, the night deepens. Stars bloom over Goshen, countless as the children yet to be born. Within the tent, the light flickers one last time, casting gentle shadows upon the faces of 12 men who will carry the covenant through centuries. Jacob's eyes close, not in fear, but in fulfillment. He has seen the promise stretch through famine, separation, and grief. And now, through his sons, it stretches still farther into nations unborn. He exhales once, a final breath that sounds almost like a blessing. Then stillness. Joseph leans forward and kisses his father's forehead. The tent fills with the sound of mourning. A low, rhythmic ache that blends with the wind outside. Servants come, brothers weep, but Joseph's grief is deeper than words. He presses his father's hand to his chest, whispering prayers older than speech. Then, with reverence, he commands that the body be embalmed. For Egypt's custom will guard him until his return to Canaan. 40 days pass in preparation, 70 in mourning. All Egypt weeps, not for a foreigner, but for a patriarch who had walked with God and blessed their prince. The procession that follows is unlike any Egypt has seen. Chariots, elders, and a host of mourners crossing the wilderness. Dust rises in a silver haze beneath the sun. From the fields of Goshen to the borders of Canaan, travelers pause to watch. The grief of nations moves like a river, Egyptian and Hebrew united in respect. When they reach the cave of Machpelah, Joseph steps forward. He lays his father beside Abraham and Isaac, beneath the earth that once heard God's promise. The stone seals softly, the silence is deep and holy. For a moment, Joseph kneels, his forehead touching the ground. The air is heavy with memory of childhood dreams, of wells and coats, of tears and deliverance. He does not speak, for grief has its own language. But in his heart, he feels his father's faith still breathing. A faith that says exile is never forever. As they return to Egypt, Joseph's chariot rolls slowly through the desert light. The sky above is wide and blue, the kind that makes a man feel small beneath eternity. He knows this road will lead back to Egypt, to palaces, to duties, to brothers waiting with quiet fear. But his thoughts remain with the cave, with the peace of an old man finally home. Yet as the dust of Canaan fades behind him, another silence begins to stir. the silence of brothers whose guilt still trembles beneath forgiveness. And in that stillness, a new chapter of mercy waits to be spoken. The dust of Canaan still clings to their garments when they return to Egypt. The wailing has ceased, the long caravan has disbanded, and the songs of mourning fade into the hum of daily labor. The cave of Machpelah lies behind them, sealed with stone and memory. But in the hearts of Joseph's brothers, another kind of stone begins to stir. The weight of guilt, old yet unforgotten. Days turn into weeks. Egypt's rhythm resumes. Chariots roll through the streets, scribes etch records in the palace, and the Nile glides on as if grief were a passing dream. Joseph returns to his duties, his face calm, his voice steady. To the people, he is still Zaphanath-Paneah, savior of nations. But his brothers see more than Egypt's governor. They see the boy they once betrayed. Without Jacob, the air feels thinner between them. His presence had been a bridge, a quiet assurance that Joseph's mercy might endure for their father's sake. But now, as night settles over the land, the brothers whisper among themselves in low, fearful tones. What if he still remembers? Reuben murmurs. What if he repays us now for all the evil we did to him? Asks Gad, his voice barely a breath. Judah, who once offered himself in Benjamin's place, says nothing. His silence weighs the heaviest of all. They gather in Benjamin's house, their faces drawn by worry. The lamps flicker, and the shadows on the walls seem to accuse them. The memory of a pit in Dothan returns. The echo of a brother's cries, the flash of silver coins, the caravan that carried him away. Time had dulled those sounds, but grief has sharpened them again. In the quiet, one of them suggests, let us send word to him. Let us speak as our father would have spoken if he were still with us. And so they craft their message, fragile and trembling like parchment in the wind. Your father gave this command before he died. Say to Joseph, I beg you, forgive the trespass of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. Now we beg you, forgive the trespass of the servants of the God of your father. When Joseph receives their message, he does not answer immediately. The words unfold before him like a wound reopened. He does not feel anger, only sorrow that they still doubt what love has long made clear. He weeps. The servants see him, startled by a ruler's tears. They call for the brothers. When the 11 men enter, they fall before him, not with pride, but with trembling. The marble floor glows beneath their knees. Years of famine and forgiveness, of reunion and peace, seem to vanish into this one fragile moment. Behold, we are your servants, they say, voices quivering. Joseph looks down at them. The same men who once stripped him of his coat, who sold him into chains, who watched the horizon swallow his freedom. Yet he sees not enemies, but brothers, the men through whom God wove his strange and saving design. He steps forward, his tone soft as the breath of prayer. Do not be afraid, he says. Am I in the place of God? The words fall like balm over old scars. In them is no rebuke, only humility, the recognition that vengeance does not belong to human hands. Then he speaks the truth that has guided his every silence, every sorrow, every rising from ruin. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. The brothers lift their eyes. His voice carries no anger, only peace. The memory of pain is there, yes, but it is wrapped now in understanding, transfigured by grace. Joseph reaches out, raising them from the ground. One by one, he embraces them. His arms, once bound in chains, now hold the power to free hearts long imprisoned by guilt. Outside, the light changes, gold deepening into dusk. The sounds of the city soften, wheels slow, markets close. Flutes sing faintly from distant courtyards. Egypt settles into evening, and within Joseph's house, the family of Israel breathes again. He comforts them, speaks gently to them, and provides for them, for their children, their herds, their homes. The famine years are long past, yet his generosity flows still, as though abundance were the natural language of forgiveness. In the nights that follow, the brothers eat together once more. Benjamin's laughter returns. Judah's eyes grow softer. The years of separation seem to fold in on themselves like waves retreating into sea. Still, sometimes, as they watch Joseph walk through the courtyards of the palace, they wonder how such mercy could dwell in one so wounded. But Joseph never speaks of the pit again. He carries no bitterness, only the memory of providence, of a dream fulfilled not through revenge, but through patience. His heart rests where his father's faith once rested, in the quiet certainty that every sorrow can be redeemed when placed in God's hands. And so the days pass peacefully. The children of Israel grow in number beneath Egypt's sun. Their laughter fills Goshen. Their tents stretch wide across the land. Yet in Joseph's eyes, there remains a distant look, as though he is watching a horizon no one else can see. He remembers the promise his father carried that this is not home. Egypt is a refuge, not a resting place. For now, he is content, but deep within, a longing stirs, not for power, but for return. The land of his fathers calls faintly across the years, and his faith answers in silence. And as peace settles over Goshen's fields, Joseph's gaze turns once more toward the unseen homeland, the promise beyond Egypt's plenty. Soon, even his gentle strength will yield to time, and the story will rest in quieter hands. The years have gathered like reeds by the riverbank, countless, whispering, bending in the wind. Egypt has changed. The Pharaoh, who once exalted Joseph, sleeps beneath stone, his name fading from the tongues of men. New kings rise, new monuments pierce the desert sky. The land hums with the rhythm of labor and harvest, of ceremony and song. But within the land of Goshen there is peace. The children of Israel have multiplied, flocks grazing wide, laughter carrying through the air. The shadow of famine is a memory now, softened by plenty. And Joseph, their protector, moves among them with the calm of a man who has seen both dungeon and throne, and found God steady in both. His hair is white now, his hands lined with years of mercy, but his eyes, still clear, still searching the horizon, hold the same light that once dreamed of stars bowing low. He walks the fields in evening, the same fields where his brother's children play. Sometimes they ask him about Canaan, about Jacob, about the stone cave where the fathers sleep, and Joseph tells them softly, his voice slow and reverent, there is a land beyond this one, a land promised to us. One day God will bring us there. In Egypt's courts, Joseph's name still carries weight, but his story has grown quiet. The scribes record his deeds in lines of ink, yet their hearts move on to newer gods and greater wonders. He does not seek their remembrance. His heart belongs not to marble halls, but to the covenant, to a promise older than pyramids. He often visits the storehouses he once built, now empty of grain, but heavy with memory. His steps echo on the stone floors, where once his wisdom preserved a nation. He remembers the nights he calculated measures by lamplight, the years he balanced Egypt's wealth against the hunger of the earth. He remembers Pharaoh's ring upon his hand, the sound of crowds cheering as he passed. All of it feels distant, like a dream that has released him. Sometimes, when the court musicians play, he closes his eyes and hears instead the wind over Canaan's hills, the bleating of sheep, the laughter of a boy in a many-coloured coat. He remembers the pit, the chains, the prison. He remembers the dream. But above all, he remembers the faith that never broke, the thread that wound through every darkness until light returned. His brothers are long gone now. Benjamin's sons tend the herds. Judah's line grows strong. Joseph, though surrounded by family, carries a quiet solitude, not of loneliness, but of reflection. He knows his life has been both wound and healing, loss and restoration. In each turn, he has seen God's hand, invisible yet sure. When his great-grandchildren gather around him, he tells them stories, not of Egypt's splendor, but of God's faithfulness. His voice trembles, but his words are steady. Remember, he says, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. Remember his promise, for it does not die, even when we do. They listen wide-eyed, half understanding, sensing the weight of something eternal in his tone. He smiles, resting a weathered hand upon their heads. He will surely visit you, he whispers, and bring you up out of this land. Outside, the Nile glimmers beneath the moon. The same river that once carried the tears of slaves will one day carry the first cries of deliverance. Joseph does not live to see it, but faith lets him glimpse it, faintly, like dawn beyond a far horizon. As the years deepen, his body weakens, but his spirit glows brighter. He no longer walks the fields. Instead, he sits by the window, watching the sun sink over Egypt's plains. The air smells of wheat and honey, of incense from distant temples. He watches the people move, the Egyptians in their linen robes, the Hebrews in their simpler garments, two nations entwined by providence. When the nights grow long, he dreams again, not of sheaves or stars this time, but of reunion. He sees Jacob smiling in the distance, sees the faces of his brothers redeemed, sees the promise fulfilled. The dream feels near, as though the veil between time and eternity has grown thin. Then, one evening, as the lamps are lit and the household gathers in quiet, Joseph calls his family to him. His voice is soft but sure, the tone of a man who has carried truth all his life and now prepares to hand it on. "I die," he says gently, "but God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land, unto the land which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob." A hush fills the room. Even the youngest feel the solemnity of it. His words are not farewell, but inheritance. Then he makes them swear an oath, a promise that binds the living to the dead and the present to the future. "You shall carry up my bones from here," he says. "Do not leave me in Egypt." They nod, tears glimmering in the lamplight. The vow is sealed, not by power or command, but by love. In the days that follow, Joseph's breath grows shallow. He speaks little, his eyes fixed on something unseen. When the end comes, it is quiet. His lips move once more, perhaps in prayer, perhaps in thanks, and then stillness descends. The dreamer sleeps. Egypt mourns for him as it once mourned for Jacob. The embalmers come, the processions pass. Yet, unlike the kings entombed in gold, Joseph's body carries no claim of divinity. He is not worshipped, only remembered. His coffin stands ready, not buried but waiting, a symbol of faith's patience. Through generations, it will remain, a silent witness in the land of exile. Children will point to it and whisper the words he spoke. God will surely visit you. Time will pass. Pharaohs will rise and fall. The memory of Joseph will fade from Egypt's heart, but not from Israel's. His bones will rest through centuries of silence, through bondage, through bitterness, until the night a prophet carries them out beneath the stars, bound for the land of promise. And in that moment, the dream will live again. For now, the coffin waits in Egypt's quiet halls, not as an end, but as a promise folded in time. Beyond its stillness, another story stirs. Of chains that break, of a people who remember, and of a God who comes. When the lamps of Egypt burn low, Joseph's story whispers still, a soft reminder that time itself bends toward purpose. That faith, even when buried beneath the dust of years, never truly fades. The dream that once wore chains became a crown not through striving, but through surrender, through the quiet courage to trust what could not yet be seen. Each silence in his life was not emptiness, but shaping. Each sorrow, not punishment, but preparation. Even the dark held a patient kind of mercy, the kind that waits until the heart is ready to understand. And so, as the candle of that ancient night flickers low, its light still reaches us across the centuries, reminding us that delay is not denial, and that what feels like an ending may only be a gentle turning of the page. Thank you, dear listener, for sharing this quiet space tonight, for choosing stillness over noise, wonder over weariness. In listening, you've joined a circle that stretches far beyond this moment, a lineage of hearts that have looked toward the night sky and believed that dreams, once given, are never lost. Now, let the story settle into you, softly, like dust upon a sunlit floor. Let it rest beneath your thoughts and breathe there through the night. You've carried enough for one day. You can set it all down now. The world will wait while you drift, and somewhere, unseen, the threads of your own story are being woven with care. May your sleep be deep and kind. May your dreams carry you gently, as Joseph's did, through the shadow toward the light. This has been the Sleeping Hourglass, where the past tucks you in, and time itself learns to whisper. You're always welcome to return whenever you wish to rest again in the hush of history's lullaby. And now the story sleeps, and so, perhaps, should you.